I want to thank you all for coming out today for our 15-year remembrance of the We Shall Never Forget Memorial to our 9/11 victims, their families, and our first responders. We want to start today's event. We want to invite Troop 118 to come forward, please. What we're going to do is we're going to turn around and we're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We all have a program today, and in our program we're going to start with the Star Spangled Banner. I'd like to bring Mark Miller to the stage.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Mark. Next, we're going to have an invocation from Pastor David Stoner of Temple Lutheran Church. Pastor?
And I had to come so very far away to do this. Today we call upon our God to help us remember that the tragedy of terror is not the end. Rather, it is the beginning of God's comfort for the grieving. It's the beginning of God's healing for the injured. It's the beginning of God's grace to forgive. It's the beginning of thanking God for the brave. It's the beginning of the courage to rebuild. It's the beginning of the unification of a nation. It's the beginning of peace that passes all understanding. It's the beginning of recognizing that life is fragile. It's the beginning of believing God is our hope. It's the beginning of bestowing honor to those who protect, those who serve, those who defend. It's the beginning of remembering that we will never forget. 15 years later, the tragedy of terror is not the end. Rather, it is a recognition that God has only just begun. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Next, we'll have remarks from our Mayor John Knive of Pennsauken Township.
Good afternoon, and thank you for attending this memorial. As Tim said, we're here to remember the 3,000, almost 3,000 men and women who passed away on this 9/11 occasion 15 years ago. One of the things, I think we all remember where we were 15 years ago, if you're old enough. But last night, as I was channel surfing, they replayed the whole event as it took place. One of the most remarkable things is the towers were collapsing and the people were running from the debris and everything else. There was just an historic run of our first responders going the opposite direction. So one of the things that I would certainly hope that you can also say who are our heroes are people that are standing in the back over here, our first responders, Chief Palumbo, Chief Balky. Okay? They do a phenomenal job and should also be remembered. One of the things that was during that period of time that was very uplifting, okay, at that time and the whole bit, was the way that America came together. The unity that was shown on that day, the tolerance that was shown to one another, is something that I think the men and women who passed away on that particular time would certainly wish that today we could remember that unity and that tolerance, okay, that we had back then. It would be extremely beneficial for those particular men and women to know that we can solve our differences together as one, as we did 15 years ago. So again, thank you very, very much for coming out today, and it is my honor to introduce one of Pennsauken's own, Congressman Donald Norcross.
Good afternoon, and thank you for coming out to remember such a solemn occasion. To our mayor, to our chiefs, to Pastor, we thank everyone who is here today for remembering such a historic occasion in our country's history. This past Friday, I joined with 434 other members of the House of Representatives on these steps of our great Capitol to remember 15 years ago. And the fact, when I look out in the audience here today, it's hard to believe that since that day, there have been 30 million new Americans born. 30 million who will now look at this as history, while those of us who remember that Tuesday, that bright, clear sky Tuesday, 9/11, some 15 years ago. It was a gorgeous day, and those memories will be etched in our minds forever. So we're here, and you heard the mayor talk about those first responders running back, particularly after the first collapse. Those who were running into the second building knew where they were running and what was going to happen. They understood fully what awaited them, and yet they continued to do what they do best. So that ripple effect on that day, we continue to feel today. Whether it's those who have served in the uniform throughout this great country, and quite frankly throughout the world, for those who've given their lives. This past Memorial Day, I had the opportunity to go to Arlington National Cemetery. For those of you who remember Section 60, which is where so many of those who gave everything are laid to rest, and to remember those names and to see them firsthand. I just came from the Travis Mannion run, who was born right across the river, who was killed in action, whose mother took that pain of the death and turned it into something positive, to where now 60,000 men and women who've served, given their most, and their families are now being served. The war on terror continues. We used to look at wars that had beginnings and ends, and now we look at this war on terror as a generational war. That we're not seeing the end as we traditionally have known it. That those who serve today will continue to serve. That we're turning such a negative into something so positive. Because the terrorists want us to retreat, to fall back, to not live our lives. But we do what Americans do best. We come together. Down in Washington, a place that has so many wonderful memorials, there's a place that when 9/11 comes up, it reminds me. And in the museum dedicated to the news organization called the Newseum, The top antenna of the World Trade Center still stands there today on display. And on the adjacent wall are the headlines from newspapers around the world who on that day came together. As Mayor spoke about, we as Americans came together as one. The world came together that day after, understanding the tragedy that happened to our country was not only our country, but to the world that we know. And now we see it throughout the world. Nice in France, what they just experienced. Our Orlando's, our San Bernardino, the terrorist activities. We must remain vigilant, and we will. And that's what we have to remember these days. Those who gave their lives, but those who are protecting us from the next attack. So with that thought in mind, may God bless those first responders, those who have worn the uniform, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
I want to thank Donald Norcross for those words. Pennsauken graduate, born and raised here in Pennsauken, still cares about our town. I want to thank Donald one more time. Thank you, Donald. I am honored and humbled to be able to read from the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey correspondence, so you know the travesty that keeps going on, the health situation. So I'm going to take a minute to please read this, so bear with me. For the past 15 years, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey has remained committed to honoring the people who we have lost at September 11th, including our first responders who paid the ultimate price. Their sacrifice, and to those who continue to face challenges that we front each and every day. We are dedicated to preserving the memory of the men and women who faced the tragic events of September 11th with unparalleled bravery, ensuring that we never forget, and that those who reside within and outside of New York and New Jersey region do not forget either. Thanks to your help, we have been able to accomplish this, such as great memorials that we see behind us. On behalf of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, I want to thank you for your commitment to honoring those first responders and to all those other lives we have lost in September 11th by accepting the artifact of the World Trade Center. As you know, we have a beam from the Trade Center behind us here, and creating public display in your community and your organizations. While the fact of the day has been well documented, many throughout the country are unaware of the health impact still facing by thousands of responders and survivors who live not only in the region that we serve, but around our country. With this 15th anniversary of September 11th today, we know your township, Pennsauken, will be having a memorial event. These events present an opportunity to raise awareness about the continuing health impacts to those responders and survivors. The following information conveys the scale of issues comes from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention of World Trade Center Health Program, which is established by Zgoda 9/11 Health and Compensation Act. There are more than 71,000 responders and survivors still receiving monitoring and medical treatment from September 11th. In the past year, more than 3,600 responders and their survivors will enroll in the World Trade Center Health Program. September 11th responders and their survivors in the program are in every state of 429 of the 435 congressional districts. Approximately 6,000 responders enrolled in the World Trade Center Health Program residing in and outside the New York metropolitan area. More than 3,300 members, responders, survivors have at least one injury or illness related to September 11th. More than 2,200 have more than two. There then, more than 3,700 responders, survivors have cancer-related ailments to the events of September 11th. We throughout this area thought it would be important that Pennsauken Township know the scope and magnitude of the health issues faced by September 11th responders and their survivors across the country. Sincerely, Patrick J. Foy, Executive Director of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. As we reflect on this, we'd like to bring Gary Bergen up to sing the Lord's Prayer.
Shall we pray? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Thank you, Gary. Next, we'd like you to open up your programs, and we're going to invite Mark Miller up again. And please sing along to America the Beautiful.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains, majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for pilgrim feet, who stern in passion stress, a thoroughfare for freedom beat across the wilderness. America, America, God mend thine every flaw, confirm thy soul with self-control, thy liberty in law.
Thank you, Mark. Now we come to our part in the program where we remember. we'd like to have the ringing of the bell, and we want to ask Fire Chief Joseph V. Palumbo, Sr., as I say the time, he's going to ring the bell, and if we could take a moment of silence. On 8:47 a.m., New York City, New York, American Flight 11, North Tower. I want to welcome Rhonda Bella back to sing God Bless America. If you could please open your books. Thank you.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the ocean, wide wind flow. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. From the mountains to the prairies to the ocean, wide wind flow. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you, Rhonda. As we remember all of the people that paid the ultimate sacrifice that day, we're going to have our second bell ringing. 9:02 a.m., New York City, New York, Flight United 175, South Tower. We'll invite Ron Bella back for the singing of Amazing Grace.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious is that grace appeared the hour I first believed.
Thank you, Rhonda. Our third moment of silence. 9:41 a.m. Washington, D.C. American Flight 77, Pentagon. As we remember, we want to bring Mike Murphy up to sing Where Were You?
Where were you when the world stopped turning on that September day? You in the yard with your wife and children, playing on some stage in LA. Did you stand there in shock at the sight of that black smoke rising against that blue sky? Did you shout out in anger and fear for your neighbor, or did you just sit down and cry? Did you weep for the children who lost their dear loved ones, pray for the ones who don't know? Did you rejoice for the people who walked from the rubble, sob for the ones left below? Did you burst out with pride for the red, white, and blue, and the heroes who died just doing what they do? Did you look up to heaven for some kind of answer and look at yourself and what really matters? I'm just a singer of simple songs. I'm not a real political man. I watch CNN, but I'm not sure I can tell you the difference in Iraq and Iran. But I know Jesus and I talk to God, and I remember this from when I was young. Faith, hope, and love are some good things He gave us. The greatest is love. Where were you when the world stopped turning on that September day? Teaching a class full of innocent children, driving down some cold interstate. Did you feel guilty cause you're a survivor? In a crowded room, did you feel alone? Did you call up your mother and tell her you love her? Did you dust off that Bible at home? Did you open your eyes, hope it never happened? Close your eyes and not go to sleep. Did you notice the sunset for the first time in ages? Speak to some stranger on the street. Did you open your eyes, hope it never happened? Claim the line and get your own blood. Did you just stay at home and cling tight to your family? Thank God you had somebody to love. I'm just a singer of simple songs. I'm not a real political man. I watch CNN, but I'm not sure I can tell you the difference in Iraq and Iran. But I know Jesus and I talk to God, and I remember this from when I was young. Faith, hope, and love are some good things He gave us. The greatest is love. The greatest is love. The greatest is love. Where were you when the world stopped turning on that September day?
Thank you, Mike Murphy. For our fourth moment of silence, 10 o'clock a.m. Swanksville, PA. United Flight 93. To all of our military, our first responders, and all those who paid the ultimate sacrifice of that day, we stand here proud to be an American. We'd like to ask Neil Arick to come forth and to please join us in singing Proud to be an American.
If tomorrow all things were gone, I worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife. I thank my lucky stars for living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they won't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died and gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend us still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA. Well, there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died and gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you, defenders still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died and gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Thank you, Neil. In a few minutes, we're going to conclude our program. We'd like to thank everyone who participated today, each and every one of you who came out to that we shall never forget all the sacrifice of that day 15 years ago. To our first responders. Right now, I'd like you all to release your balloons. As we watch them go away, go ahead, please release your balloons. Thank you. As we watch the balloons float away, we're going to sing, "Let There Be Peace on Earth." I want to thank Pennsauken Township, Bill Orth, and everyone today that came out to help us remember this day. As we finish up, please join in singing, "Let There Be Peace on Earth." God bless America. This concludes today's program. Thank you for coming out, and God bless America.